And then I show up to family court from jail. They transport you over there. You do family court, and the judge goes, "Well, since you can't take care of her, because you're in jail and everything, we're just going to give her everything." And so every asset, the entire business, all the business assets and everything, all went to her, so she could start selling them and take care of the kids. And then I get out of jail with no place to live, no income. My mother was like, "You can come stay with me." And I'm like, "That's wonderful." And I did that. But who wants to live with their mother long term? So it was like, how do I get out of here as fast as possible? Not because I don't love my mom, but a grown man wants to live with his mom. So I had a choice to make at that point. And I'll be very honest with you. I seriously considered making the choice of quitting. I was like, okay, that's it. It's done. What kind of jobs can a felon get? Well, I can drive trucks. I could probably get a job driving trucks. I'm like, that might actually be cool. And then one day I woke up, and the voice of my mentor was in my head. And we used to get in big, big, big trouble if we went up to do training and we did anything without our dogs with us. Because my mentor would always tell us, we're dog men. That's what we are. You do everything with your dogs. And so I woke up one morning and that was in my head. And it was just like, okay, well, I guess that's what I'm going to do then. I'm a dog man. So I just started rebuilding the business, just put out basic little advertisements on things like Craigslist and stuff. People started showing up to train with their dogs, started making a little bit of money, started buying my dogs back from my ex-wife so that I could put them back into the business. I met Wendy, which is here with me now. She's around here somewhere. She's awesome. We ended up getting a place in Orlando that we built a facility on. So we had the kennel and all that good stuff. And it looked like everything was going great again. And then my lease didn't get renewed. And it's like, oh, crap, what do we do now? Although this time it was a setback, but now it wasn't catastrophic because I'd already gone through something big. And it's like, okay, so there's no question. We're just going to deal with this. So the question now becomes, how do we deal with it? Not, oh, no, everything's falling apart, right? And that's actually what we're going to be talking about mostly today. So we moved from Florida to Ohio. And over the last year and a half, I've basically put $180,000 into a property I don't own, but it will take care of us for a couple of years because we're actively looking for property, probably in Tennessee, somewhere in Nicole's neck of the woods. So that is kind of how I got to where I am now, right? And I say that because a lot of times you start talking about motivation or overcoming things and people are like, yeah, like you make 7 figures and you basically didn't have to do any hard work to get there. And it's like, oh no, everything fell apart. So if you feel that way about anything in your life, oh look, it's a tiny hand. If you feel that way about anything in your life, then this is a thing that you can use to get over it. Now, I didn't use this exact terminology when I was going through it, but when Jack said it, I'm like, yeah, that's basically what I was doing. Instead of going, oh no, why me? I eventually came around to, although I did a lot of the why me stuff before this happened, just to be honest, like I don't want people to think, oh yeah, I just went through this and it was no big deal. Like I was literally laying on my face on the floor for hours, like just going, what the hell do I do? After my wife walked out in the beginning. So it's like, there were definitely hard times. It was definitely like, everything's falling apart. But basically, once I got over that, I said, okay, well, I got to start doing something. So what do we do first? And we started going through that. And one of the big things that happened during that time frame was I figured, you know what? I am a hard person to live with. And I mean, ask Wendy, she'll tell you. And I love her to death, but it's like, I'm a hard person to live with. So I said, the thing I need to do is at least try to make myself as good as I can. So if my ex-wife wants to come back, it'll benefit her. If she doesn't and I meet somebody else, it'll benefit them. But I should do the best I can to make myself as good as I can. And as I went through that process, this concept of dragons came up. If you're familiar with Jordan Peterson, I'm sure you've heard this. If you're not, he says, we all have to face dragons. And a dragon is basically a problem in your life, right? So there's this story that there's a mom, dad, and a little boy. And the little boy wakes up one morning and he sees a dragon about the size of a cat. He's like, whoa, I didn't know dragons existed. And he runs to his mom and he says, Mom, there's a dragon in my room. And the mom says, dragons don't exist. And he goes, like, oh, that's kind of weird. And he walks back in his room and the dragon's still there, but now it's the size of a dog. And he goes, whoa. And he runs back to his mom and he's like, Mom, the dragon's still there, but now it's the size of a dog. And she goes, stop telling me dragons are in your room. Dragons don't exist. And he tries to go about his day, but every time he sees the dragon, it's bigger and bigger and bigger until it's so big that everybody has to get out of the house. The parents can't come in or out, and the house is about to explode. And finally, the parents look at each other and go, well, you know what? I guess dragons do exist. And then all of a sudden, the dragon went, whoop, back to a cat size. And the idea there is if you try to avoid your problems, because the dragon is the problem, right? When you deal with it when it's the size of a cat, it's pretty easy to deal with. If you wait for it to get the size of a house, it's a lot harder to deal with. And but the other thing to keep in mind is most of the dragons in your life, you either are going to avoid them and then they're going to attack you when you least expect it, right? Like a bad relationship and then a divorce. That's a dragon attacking you when you least expect it. Or you're going to identify the dragon and you're going to go attack it before it comes and attacks you, right? So we have these two options, and you're not always going to be able to see every dragon coming. Even when you're trying to do that actively, sometimes you'll still get sideswiped by a dragon. But the other thing to keep in mind is every dragon has treasure. And what does that mean? If you have a shitty job, that's a dragon for you to attack. I want to go get a better job. And the treasure is going to be, now I'm going to be happier with my job, right? If you have a bad relationship and you go attack that dragon, the benefit is I have a better relationship. So the bigger the dragon too, typically the bigger the reward. So a lot of times we're trying to avoid dragons because they're big, and we don't realize, well, wait a minute, that's where the most reward is, right? That also goes in business. You can identify a problem that maybe isn't your problem, right? Like, hey, it'd be a good thing for people to have protection dogs. And then you go, I'm going to go fill that problem. So it's not always that the dragons are attacking you. They can be out there in the world somewhere. And I go, ooh, look, that's a problem. I could solve that problem. And then you go out and you solve that problem. The problem with a lot of these situations, though, is it's really hard to make yourself uncomfortable deliberately. Most of us want to be comfortable, right? If it's like, hey, you know what? You guys could all be doing handstands right now while you're listening to me talk. Why aren't you doing that? Bunch of lazy pieces of crap. Because we want to sit in chairs and be comfortable. I do the same thing, right? But a lot of times, in order to do the things that we want to do, we have to go make ourselves uncomfortable somehow. And that could just be staying up late, working, hard when we don't want to, instead of going and doing something that's fun, like watch TV, I have to go down and answer emails, things that make us uncomfortable. Well, the best thing to do is get comfortable being uncomfortable, right? There's an old saying that says, comfort makes today easy, but tomorrow hard. But discipline makes today hard and tomorrow easy. And every generation before us has had to survive. And all of these comforts and these conveniences have come into our lives. We all have phones and we have cars and we have internet and we have electricity and all these great things. And it's very easy to use all those conveniences to become lazy, or we can take all of those awesome tools and use them to slay even bigger dragons than our ancestors could have before us, right? So one of the things that happens that will stop us in this process is we blame somebody else for our problems. And all of us can do this in one way or another. You need to accept responsibility for every problem in your life. And here's why. Even if you didn't create it, accept responsibility for it. So when I was listening to Jack in the beginning, he basically said, go build a business. And I went, okay, well, you're not giving me enough direct business information. Like, I don't know what to do. So I started going to these entrepreneurial boot camps and all this stuff. And one of the stories the guy told there was that he had a classroom of kids. And he walked in and he had to kind of deliberately set this up. There was something wrong in the classroom, right? And he goes, who's responsible for this? And of course, all the kids are like, not me. And he waited for a minute. And one of the kids got up and went and fixed it. And he goes, thank you. You were responsible for it. And the idea behind that story is, if you're responsible for it, you can do something about it. If you're not responsible for it, then you can't do anything to fix it. And if it's a problem in your life, you want to be responsible for it so that you can fix it, so it's not a problem anymore. And so the other thing is, never try to explain away your failures. Now, I'm not talking about giving a rational answer to somebody who asked a question. I'm talking about making excuses for ourselves, right? Oh, that didn't work because, and then we try to explain it away. Here's the deal. One of the things I learned in the Army, and this was like a saying that my bosses all knew me to say very well, is I would get yelled at by my boss. And that happened a lot in the Army because I was always pushing boundaries and trying to see what was going on. And then my boss would yell at me and he'd say, you fucked this up. And I'd go, yes, sir, I did. I suck. I'll try to suck less tomorrow. And that was always my response to getting in trouble. But I always got out of trouble really fast because that was my response to trouble. When I would be standing next to another officer who also did the same thing, and he's in trouble too, and he's trying to explain it away. No, sir, it's not my fault. Blah, blah, blah. This person did this and that person did that. They would just get their ass chewed for 30 minutes. My boss would go, okay, get out of my office and go fix it. Right? So if you identify the problem, you don't make excuses for failure, and you get out there and do something about it, that's how you start making change in your life. And somebody said this the other day, and I was like, wow, that's a really interesting way to think about things. There's this concept in storytelling for marketing that says the person is the hero in their life, right? And then as a company, we're supposed to come alongside them as like the helper, as like the Yoda to Luke Skywalker, right? I have the solution that will help you defeat Darth Vader. And we come along beside him. If we try to say we're a hero, then it's almost like we're like, oh, you're a hero? I'm a hero too. Good to meet you. Okay, I'm going to go do my thing and you go do your thing. But if you come along as a helper, then the idea is, oh, I could use your help so that I can continue on my hero's journey. And so we tend to think of ourselves that way. We're like the center of the story, right? We're the hero in the story. Well, here's the question. If your life was a movie, would anyone watch it? Or is it boring? And we all want comfort, but who wants to watch a movie where a guy sits on a couch with his cell phone tapping away and then goes to the bathroom and then does something else boring? Like, we all want to accomplish something big, or at least something that is exciting to us. So we need to get off our butts and do it. And if you think about it that way, all of a sudden that changes my whole perspective. I go, holy crap, I am boring right now. I need to go do some hero shit so that people will be interested in watching my movie. All right. Okay, so here's some of the problems that come up in this, though. I had a situation, I remember years ago, I was getting into backpack hunting. And I would go online, and I would look at all these different kinds of backpacks, and I found this company called Kifaru, and they make these amazing backpacks. But I started getting this concept in my head that these backpacks are so awesome, they like basically carry themselves. And so I buy this backpack, right? It's like a $700 backpack, and the thing is enormous and holds like 80 pounds. And I go to put it on, and I'm like, holy shit, I still have to carry this weight. Like, it's pretty comfortable. Like, it rests really well on your hips and it doesn't bear down on your shoulders, but my legs still have to carry the weight, right? So the idea of this backpack gave me the illusion that I was going to be able to carry all this weight without any pain or suffering, right? That is an illusion. Doing things right, doing everything the way you're supposed to, looking at life as if it's the dragons, asking, how can I? And going out and doing it instead of saying, why me? I can't do it. All of those things are great and will make progress in your life, but they don't take away the pain. They don't take away the weight that you have to carry. There's still work involved. And so sometimes we hear these things and it's like, oh yeah, that's awesome, I'm going to do it. And then we start doing it and it's hard. And we go, but I thought like that was supposed to be an easy thing. It's like, no, it's an effective thing. It works. But it's not easy. It's going to be hard. There's going to be a lot of pain. And social media likes to sell us on the highlights, right? Like if you look at most people's social media, it's like, oh, all the good stuff. And I think it was Matt last night that was mentioning, I worked at this for 5 years and now I'm getting ready to go full time in a couple of months, the 5-year overnight success, right? You're working in the background, going and going and grinding and grinding and grinding as it slowly gets better and you slowly build up momentum. But there's definitely still work and pain involved. And the cost of weakness is that if you don't do this, everything starts to fall apart, right? So a lot of times we think, if I just hide in that corner over there, nobody will come and talk to me. I won't have to deal with being, socially awkward. I won't have to do this uncomfortable thing. If I just sit on the couch and watch Netflix tonight, then I don't have to deal with all my problems that are over there, right? And this cost of weakness, we start thinking, well, I'm just going to do this thing instead of dealing with that. I'm going to do this thing instead of dealing with that. That's when those dragons start to grow and they start to surround you. And then when they come out, they typically come out in groups, and that gets really, really bad. So get comfortable being uncomfortable and start identifying, how are we going to do this? How are we going to move forward? So here's the practical stuff, right? So all that's the conceptual stuff. Here's the practical stuff. How do you get into this habit of going, how can I? How can I? Anxiety is an emotion that tells us entropy has increased in our life. So for instance, you're driving down the road, you're going to work, everything's going fine, and all of a sudden you get a flat tire. Okay, now all of a sudden I knew the path that my day was going to go on. Now there's 15 paths that it could go on, and I don't know which one it's going to be. Am I going to be able to change my tire quick and still get to work and only be 5 minutes late? Or am I going to have a tow truck come and get it? Or when I have the blowout, am I going to swerve and cause other damage to my vehicle? And so all of a sudden we get anxious because all these other possibilities that we didn't have to think about show up. So what's happening when you feel anxious or fear about something is your brain doesn't have a clear path, right? So before the flat tire, I knew what I was doing. My brain knew the goal: go to work, do my job. But the minute the tire went flat, my brain was like, uh-oh, I don't know what to focus on. Because most of us think our brains help us think. And there's some truth to that, of course. But mostly what your brain does is help you ignore things. So if you had to focus on everything in this room, your brain would be completely overwhelmed all the time and you couldn't do anything. So most of what your brain does is it helps you ignore all the things. Well, how does it choose what to ignore and what to focus on? You have to give it a goal. And if you don't give it a goal, it jumps from one micro goal to the other, and you don't make very much progress in anything. Because your brain will be like, oh yeah, I see that thing. And I remember I wanted to do this little thing. And then you're halfway through that job and you look over and you're like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. And you step over there and you end up jumping from task to task in things that aren't very productive. But if you go, this is where I want to be in a year. This is why it can help to write it down, right? Because it'll bring it to mind. But even just identifying it and like making sure this is really what I want to do, I set a goal. And now what my subconscious does is it starts categorizing everything. So right now we're ignoring most of this rest of the stuff in this room, right? Why? Because our brain categorizes and it goes, okay, I have a goal. There are friends and there are enemies. So that's the people that I interact with. Either this person's a friend, they're just somebody I don't need to worry about at all, or they're getting in my way. They're an enemy. But they're obstacles to me getting to the back of the room. I have to walk around them. I might have to step over them or pick them up and move them. And so that's how our brain starts categorizing things. We have friends and we have enemies and we have tools and we have obstacles, and then everything else we just ignore. And again, if you don't identify the goal, though, your brain doesn't know which goal to work on when it's trying to categorize and identify. It goes, well, like you might be a friend for this thing, but for this other thing, I might need to ignore you. I don't know what I need to do right now. And your brain gets all jumbled and confused. So this is literally how perception works. Like it sounds like woo-woo stupid shit until you actually realize your brain ignores everything except what you tell it to focus on. And if you don't do it deliberately, what ends up happening is it just goes, well, I think I'm supposed to focus on this and I think I'm supposed to focus on that. It's all these little micro goals. And so so the dog training parallel to this that kind of helps bring it down to concrete is if I have a dog and they're at my side and they're just kind of spinning around and sniffing things and moving around, and I'm not telling them to do anything, they're not being disobedient yet, right? They're just confused. They don't know what I want them to do, or they're just ignoring me because they're not getting input and they're just doing whatever they want. But the minute I go, Foos, seats, Foos is to come to my side, seats is to sit down, now they've been given a goal. Now, if they don't do it, then that's disobedience. But if they're just moving around doing things and checking stuff out, the minute I give them their goal, come to my side and sit down, and they do it, good job. Now I brought their mind into a goal, right? Into a task to get done. And the same thing works in our brains. So as we go through this, though, we can look at ourselves two different ways: the victim or the victor, right? Do things happen to us? Or are we going out and making things happen? And you're always going to have some things that will happen to you. But here's what tends to happen as you start going after these dragons. So the first thing we look at when we have a dragon is we go, okay, is that dragon something I can actually defeat? Like sending rockets to Mars. Us, nope, that's not something we can do. Maybe Elon with his money can make it happen, right? So we have to identify, is the dragon one that we can actually go and win against? We don't want to go get killed by the dragon. And then the next thing we do is we go, okay, so how do I go about actually chasing this dragon? And then when things happen to me, well, then we can do that and we get successful, right? We start actually overcoming some dragons. And what happens is the bigger dragons look smaller and smaller, or at least more feasible. And the smaller dragons that we were having to deal with earlier, even though sometimes they might still be there, they're almost like not worth paying attention to anymore because they're not that big a deal. And we start going through this process and we get better and better and better at it. And then so it looks like it's easier to some people, but what's really happening is we just set up systems in the background to deal with those other things. And we're looking for the next dragon to slay, the next dragon to slay. So how do I actually start asking, how can I? Every time you experience anxiety or fear, that's your body going, I don't know what to do. We can make excuses for it. We can become the victim. We can try and explain it away. Or we can go, I accept responsibility. How can I do it? How can I overcome this problem? So the dragons don't stop coming. They're just going to keep coming. But they get much easier to deal with as you go. If you're experiencing anxiety, fear, you're terrified to deal with something, the dragons you ignore are the ones that are going to come and bite you in the ass the worst. The dragons you avoid are the ones that are going to come and cause big, big problems right when you don't want them to do. So view yourself as the hunter. The world doesn't need more complainers. The world needs more hunters. All right. Any questions? I know the first question's always the hesitation. Andy.
Yes. I have a fear of speaking in public. Just kidding.
How do I overcome it? You're doing great.
Anxiety.
You're doing awesome.
I don't have anxiety. I probably don't have enough emotions. How would I help people in my family, if they're listening, I'm not mentioning your name, work through anxiety? I feel the same way, but when I say it, I'm a relative, and so I'm relatively stupid. How do you approach the anxiety of other people when you know it's real, but I don't feel it?
So what I would do in that situation, like let's say it's my wife, right? First of all, mine, not yours, mine, right? So let's say it's my wife. Well, first of all, I need to recognize men and women think about things differently, right? So a lot of times men say women are emotional as if that's a negative thing. And it can be if you don't have some control over it. But what is going on in a woman's world is their brain actually ignores less than ours because they detect threats much better than we do. Men tend to get really hyper-focused, and there could be a threat over there. And if I'm not deliberately scanning, then I'll totally miss it. But what happens when our wives are being threat detection devices is sometimes they have false positives, right? They go, that's a snake. And you go, smash. And then it's like, oh, that wasn't poisonous. It was not really a threat, but bad for the snake. But if it's better to have a false positive in that situation, right? Oh, don't worry about it. We're just going to go, how can I? So what I tend to do with my wife when she's like starting to have some of these issues is I go, okay, let's sit down and figure out what can we do to make this better. And one of the things Jordan talks about, and this is really for all of us, but it applies really well in a relationship of any kind, is you need to start talking first, right? Like us guys often, like we start talking to our wives and she presents a problem and we go, oh, I had the solution. And here's the problem with that is not that I don't have the solution. The problem with that is she doesn't really know what the problem is yet. She has to talk it through. And as she talks it through, she goes, oh, wait, that's not really the problem. This is the problem over here. And then you talk some more and it's like, you know what? And that's not even the problem. It's this. And you have to get to the actual problem first, because when you present that solution, the reason it gets rejected is you present the solution and she immediately realizes, oh yeah, that wasn't the problem. Now I'm just frustrated that you interrupted me. Right? I needed to get to the problem. I have to work through it. So exactly. So if you want to work through these issues, you actually have to talk and let them talk, because that talking process is the thinking process. And then you can help guide, well, what about this? Or what's going on over there? Or why is this a problem? Is that really the big problem? And in a curious way, right? So we're not like, oh no, you need to focus on this over here. We're not dictating where it goes. We're asking so that they can explore and figure out where it is. And then we can go, okay, now let's actually solve this problem. So women, I think, do generally want their husbands to solve the problem. The problem is we just run around solving the wrong problems instead of actually figuring out what the problem is and then going, okay, now I can actually help you solve that problem. And I think that's one of the reasons that women tend to get anxious and stay anxious if we don't help them talk through that process and figure it out, because we solve a problem we think it's supposed to be over, and they're like, but that wasn't the actual problem. They can't articulate that a lot of times. That's that whole threat detection emotion thing. I feel this way. And we go, I don't want to hear about your feelings. It's like, but that's how they're telling you they're communicating. It's like, that is what's guiding you in the direction you need to go. And you have to let them explore that, or we never get to the actual problem. So then we can't get the actual solution. Yeah. We're picking you up.
You guys probably all got that on mic, huh?
You want an answer from Jack, your husband, or Jack, your friend?
Exactly.
And sometimes she's like, I want my husband, because she knows that means I'm going straight, and there's times she wants to talk.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What advice do you have for somebody who has come to the point where they are laying decrepit on the floor going, I don't know what to do, to be able to get back up? Like how?
So I'll tell you how it worked for me. I was literally laying on the floor, face down, like I didn't even know what to do from the perspective of just getting up, right? It was like everything had fallen apart. I didn't know what to do, and I'm laying there, and this thought comes to mind. I've got 30 dogs out there that need to be taken care of. Nobody else is here. I got to get up and feed these dogs. It was just like a small thing, right? That's not going to solve my problems. That doesn't have anything to do with solving all the problems of what is going on in my life right now, but it needed to happen. Dogs need to be taken care of. So I get up, I go feed the dogs. And then next morning, I have to get up and go feed the dogs again. So you do something small and you set that pattern, right? If everything's falling apart, whatever little thing you can put together, Jordan describes it this way. If your room is a complete and total disaster, you can't walk up to the person that's lived in this room for like 5 years, right? That's a complete disaster, and go clean your room, because that's overwhelming. You can go organize your dresser, but probably that's overwhelming. So you go open your sock drawer and make 2 sock matches. Okay, I can do that. Now do 2 more. Okay, I can do that. And by the time the sock drawer is organized, they're like, well, now I know what to do with all the rest of the dresser drawers. So they can open those and fold all the clothes and put them back in. And then they're like, well, now my dresser's organized. Maybe the top of it needs to be cleaned off. And then they can work on that. And so you start these little steps. And then as the little steps start to compound, they snowball. And before you know it, you've lived in 5 years in chaos in this room. But in a week, you cleaned it up, because you couldn't do the cleanup. You had to do the sock drawer first. And what happens a lot of times to us, just in general, if we have any kind of ego at all, which can be good if you want to accomplish something, but can also get in your way, is we go, I'm not that bad. I don't suck so much that I can only do 2 stocks in my sock drawer. No, that's not me. And then we don't want to do anything. We don't get started, right? We let pride get in the way instead of going, wow, I suck way worse than I thought I did. But I guess this is where I am. So I have to start working from here. If we pretend we're somewhere way off, way better than we are, we end up picking a direction that takes us somewhere we didn't want to go, because we thought we had presuppositions in the beginning that were wrong. And we want to know as much about ourselves as we can, even the sucky stuff. Because if you're not honest with yourself, you're not going to make the right decisions and do the things that you need to do to be better. Do you have a question, Ken?
I do.
All right.
Talking to the Joel that's here right now.
Okay.
If you could go back and make any changes, knowing who you are now and what you've succeeded at, would you make any changes in the past? Obviously, we can keep X, Y's out of it, but
Yeah.
there's a path.
I wouldn't even change that. I've
That
got
has
8
got you
kids
here.
with that woman. I love all my kids. Yeah, I would say that's always one of those hard questions, right? Because it's like, I love where I'm at right now. So if I change something, would I not end up getting here? I definitely would not change any of the pain or the problems, because those are the things that make you actually who you are. And a lot of people want to avoid the pain. And it's like, but that's the direction you need to go. That go right into that pain, because that's going to take you to places that you're going to be so happy you went through it when you get to the other side. But I will say this, you can make bad decisions along the way, and the better decisions you make, the better your life will be. So for instance, if I could change something, I'd go buy land sooner. Then I wouldn't be having to worry about land right now, right? And buy more Bitcoin. I'm okay on Bitcoin, but you can never have too much, right? But so things like that. So I made the mistake when we were in Florida of going, everything's great here. This is probably going to last forever. And all of a sudden it didn't anymore. And so we were looking at property for a little while. And then I was like, yeah, it's probably not that big a deal though. Like, everything's so great. And so I took it off my plate. And then what happened? We needed property and we didn't have any. So and of course you can make things work, right? We figured it out. We made it work. But it's like, okay, now I've learned my lesson. Now the highest priority for us right now, business wise and family wise, is we need dirt. We need a piece of land that we can go to, even if everything else, if there's nothing on it, I can go there if I need to, and I can start building if something falls apart where we are. Or hopefully we just get it, we build it up, and then we just peacefully transition over to it, right? But those kinds of things are the things that I would say I would change things like that, where like I did something stupid that is still causing me problems now and needs to be changed. But I can't change it back then. I have to change it now. Get land.
What other questions are there?
I just wanted to amplify the piece about, pick a small task.
Yes.
And this year, I live in southern Louisiana. It's hot as hell. All my projects are outside in the yard. That's all I want to do is be out there working. The sweat gets in your eyes after 15 minutes. And I learned, just go out for 10 minutes, come back in, go out for 10 minutes, and it gets done.
It gets done. Yep. Yeah, that's that concept we were talking about earlier. When you see a dragon, you have to size it up and go, can I kill this dragon? So the example of the bedroom we gave, the whole bedroom was too big a dragon. He couldn't do it. It overwhelmed him. But he could pick a dragon that was small enough, the pair of socks, and he could go defeat that dragon. And then he got a little bit more confident, and then he could do the next one and the next one and the next one. So that's that whole concept of those problems are the dragons, but you can't walk out. If you and your wife have had a terrible relationship for 10 years, you're not going to fix it tomorrow. You have to do some tiny little thing to start moving in the right direction, small steps.
We did a combat medic course. It was for shooters, stuff like that. But one of the things they taught us, talking about getting focused on something,
Yes.
they taught us to do that, like a movie picture frame, like go in and look at the area where the person is and look for all the stuff. So you're focusing yourself on deliberately looking at the whole area to make sure you see what's going on. Like, here's a person lying here shot. Where did it come from? Is there still a threat? Can I address this person without being under threat?
Exactly.
That kind of stuff.
And that's one of the places that men and women tend to complement each other in, because the men go, I have this goal, I'm going to hyper focus on it. And we get, just like you're looking through a TV screen or a phone camera, right? You can see that clearly, but there's all the other stuff I'm unaware of. And then our wives can be there and go, hey, you're forgetting about this thread over here. And it kind of takes our attention away momentarily, which can be slightly annoying from our goal. But then you go, oh yeah, that is a thing. Okay, I need to deal with that. So it's almost like watching each other's back. It's like, you focus on getting us in the direction we need to go. I'll let you know when there's other things over here that we need to stop and focus on that and take care of it. And then we can go back to the goal. Yep.
Hi there. Growing up, one of my favorite sayings has always been, failure stings, but pain is the greatest teacher. And my relationship with that saying has changed over time. It's an ongoing change. It used to be, you fall down, you scrape your knee, you get up, brush it off, and keep moving. And the next time it happens, you experience the pain. It's not a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
But as I'm getting older, that saying has changed to me, and it's more so becoming, pain is teaching me why I fell, why I failed, instead of just deal with the pain and keep going. So that's an ongoing mindset shift. And I guess the question is, what do you have to say about consciously making an effort in making that more positive mindset shift?
Yeah. This isn't something that happens overnight, right? What happens in our subconscious is we've already developed habits and patterns. And if they've not been serving us well, we have to change the pattern itself, right? Which is why this whole how can I versus I can't, or oh no, I'm just a victim, this bad thing happened to me. But what happens when you start to do that is we want to keep falling back into the ruts that we've already, there's a path that we normally follow. And that path has like these wagon wheel ruts in it, right? And we start to pull out of them a little bit. And then if we don't stay focused, we just slip back into them. And what you have to do is you have to do the repetition. It's the repetition of how can I, or whatever the thing is you're trying to change. But slowly you start to create a new rut, a new path. And then the more you travel on that path, the stronger and stronger it'll get. So as you're trying to develop these things, the first thing is, no, it's not going to change overnight. Like there's almost nothing in life that you can do that will change overnight. There's mentalities you can adopt, but even when we do that, we keep getting sucked back into the old rut. So we have to just be aware of it. That's the big thing, is if you identify, okay, these are the things that I just kind of subconsciously do. And most of the stuff that we do in our daily life is subconscious. You do it without thinking about it. But these things are bad. There's things I do subconsciously, but they're bad habits. So I have to now bring them to my conscious and start changing the direction of them. And then what happens? I focus on something else. It returns to the subconscious and it slides back into the rut. So, but as you focus and as you just habitually work on it over and over and over again, and just accept it's going to take time, then after, over time, you'll start to see shifts. The other thing is when you're looking back, because sometimes it can feel like I've been doing this forever and it's not any better, is go, how was this last month? How was this 6 months ago? How was this a year ago? Look back so you can actually see, oh, wow, I have made a lot of progress, right? Because in the moment, it's like watching your kid grow. It's like, well, they're no bigger today than they were yesterday, but go on a trip for a month and come back and it's like, holy crap, what did you do? Right? So when you are in it day after day after day after day, you don't recognize the progress you're making a lot of times. So if you look back, like at a picture of your kid and you're like, wow, you were tiny, now you're like way bigger. And then you can recognize something's actually happened. And then that's that motivation to keep going.
If I can add to that, you are the story you tell yourself. And if the stories you're telling yourself are about all the bad things in the past that have made you how you are today, you're going backwards. If you're talking to yourself about where you want to go, you're more likely to go there. So there is power to speaking things into existence, even if it sounds like magic. But
I love how Jordan actually describes that whole process, and because it does sound like woo-woo bullshit. And here's how that actually works. So it's that whole perception thing we were talking about. Your brain ignores everything that isn't in its goal pattern. That's its job. Ignore all this stuff. I don't need to focus on this. But when I do need to focus on a thing, bring that into my focus. And when you speak the things that you want to happen, this is what I'm doing today, or this is the kind of person I'm going to be today. It gives your brain that goal and it brings it into focus. Because mostly, so you don't just create things out of thin air. Like, you don't go, I'm going to get $1 million today, and it shows up. That's not what we're talking about at all. But if we go, I'm going to start making a lot more money, then what happens is this opportunity that was there the whole time, all of a sudden you're like, ooh, I could make $5,000 with that thing. And it's been there. You could have used it, but you didn't see it. You didn't perceive it because that wasn't the goal that you had set. You were jumping from one to the other. So when you start to say these things and bring them into your mind, then you recognize all the things that are around that I could use for that. Like, if I wanted to fill one of those water containers in the back, which I wasn't thinking about until like 5 seconds ago, right? Then all of a sudden, well, the spigot and the containers to bring the water in, and maybe the ice from the cooler to keep it cold, all those things come into my perception because they're useful for that task. But then I look over there and I go, well, now what if I wanted to make coffee? I wasn't thinking about coffee 2 seconds ago, but now, well, where are the grinds and where are these? And so that's all around us all the time. There's just tons and tons of potential everywhere we go. And when you start to talk about those things, all of a sudden the opportunities that present themselves you see them. It's not like they weren't there. You just recognize that they are there. And then, oh, he's lucky. Well, no, that's how it actually works. That's why it seems to work so often for people. And then, if you don't know how it works and you go, oh, well, okay, I'm going to manifest $1 million. And then it doesn't work. And you go, oh, that's bullshit. It's like, because that's not the process. The process is you're bringing things into your perception that then you can use as tools to take you to the place that you wanted to go. And it all happened because you thought about it first. You perceived it. All the other cars. Yep. Yeah, that's just how perception works. But it is awesome when you understand it. Yep. All right. Anything else?
Come up, Mr. Sits near the speaker.
I would just like to share something with all of you and get your 2 cents on it, Joel. So one policy that I've adopted in my own life, and that is, growing up, you're conditioned to, look for the open doors, look for the open doors. But I think it's very important and very pragmatic to develop the mindset. You have to welcome closed doors in life just as much as you welcome open doors. Because when I look back on my life, and I'm curious how you feel about it too, if it wasn't for closed doors that I went through, I would not be where I was today. So it can sometimes be a blessing in disguise. And I think it's very important to always keep that mindset, and curious your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So the way I look at, because I had a similar, my parents use similar terms, right? When you're in church, it's like, well, if God closes one door, he opens another, sort of thing. So we think about things that way. And the way I've come to look at that over the years is when you're young, or when you don't yet have a clear goal or a clear path that you want to follow, you want to explore as many things as you can because you're looking for that thing that catches you, right? I never planned to do dogs as a living. I just bought a dog because my ex-wife said she wanted a protection dog while I was deploying in the Army. I went and did 4 days of training with these people, and I came back obsessed. Every 4-day weekend that I had in the Army for the next decade, I flew up and trained dogs. I was there probably 120 times over the next 10 years, and we would do crazy shit every time we were there, but it just caught me, right? I didn't go up there thinking, yeah, this is awesome. I want to create a business training dogs and selling them to people. It was, okay, I need to get a dog. And then we did the stuff, and I was like, I want to do this forever now. But if you're not exploring, because there's a lot of times like people go, well, what's that for me? And then they feel stuck. Like, I don't have anything that I'm passionate about. I don't have anything that, I could do that with. Well, that's because you need to go out and explore. So Jordan points out the picture of Moses in the Bible is exactly what is happening here. Moses has built a life. He's got his wife and his kids, and he's with his father-in-law, and he's got his sheep that he's out taking care of, and he's a good man, and he takes care of his sheep, and things are going good now. And then he goes, what's that up on the mountain? That's weird. Huh. Maybe I should go check that out. Something catches his attention, and it's the burning bush up on the mountain. And then as he gets closer and closer to it and he explores it, he finds out this is something I want to be passionate about. And then what does he do? He goes and frees all the Israelites from Egypt, right? But it all started with that. I'm out wandering around doing my job, but paying attention to things, and then something catches your eye. So when you're in that process, open doors are what you want. And I mean, you'll see closed doors and it's like, well, maybe I go smash that door down just to see what's inside, or maybe I just ignore it because it's closed, right? And you have to make those decisions as you go. But then once you have the burning bush moment, once you have I know what I'm going to do now, then you actually want as many closed doors as possible, because all those things are just distractions. I only want the doors open that are going to take me in the direction I want to go. Now, the problem with perception comes in there every once in a while. It's like, I think these are the doors that need to be open that will take me where I need to go. But why is that one closed? And we push and we push and we bang on the door and it doesn't open. And then we go, oh, hang on. Okay, there's the path I'm actually supposed to go on. And we look for that other open door. And maybe it's just a door that takes us around the closed door, and then we're back on track. But those closed doors in those situations there's always, so that whole don't treat life easy, like don't try and get the easy way out. Don't look for comfort. Those are the things that if you're banging up against the door and the reason the door is closed is because you're being lazy or you're not doing the job you're supposed to do, then probably you need to fix that and bang that door down and move into it. But if you're actually doing all the stuff you're supposed to do and there's still that door there, then okay, probably we need to find another route. Does that make sense? So a lot of times we make excuses for the closed door. Oh, well, there's a closed door. I guess I'm not supposed to do that. No, you're just being a lazy piece of shit. Like, pick yourself up and fucking knock that door down and go. Or you're like, you actually are doing the things and you hit that door and you're like, okay, that's not an option. Must divert and work my way around. So that's how I look at the open doors, closed doors things at this point in my life. Is when you're young, you want lots of open doors, go explore to find the thing that you want to do so that you can find that thing that's important to you. And then we narrow, because I don't want all those other distractions anymore. There's no such thing as work-life balance if you're doing what you want to do. It's like, because I don't do anything except for what I want to do. And if the people in my life aren't cool with that, then I don't want them in my life. I want people in my life that are cool with what I'm doing. And so this whole, like, all I do is work. I work 16 hours a day. I get up and I take care of dogs and I train dogs and I work on the business, and that's all I do. And it's all I want to do. So if you're looking for work-life balance, you probably shouldn't find a passion and start a business with it, because you won't have it. Absolutely. Anybody else? I don't know what our time frame is. Okay. I totally lost track.
It's okay. We've got you.
Okay. All right, guys. Well, if there's no other questions, I'm hanging out the whole rest of the time we're here. I like to smoke my cigars, so a lot of times I'm listening to you guys on the speakers, but I'm sitting right out there. So if you guys do want to come and talk one-on-one, I'd be happy to sit, as long as you don't mind cigar smell, and we can sit and chat. Yeah. So if you guys are interested in finding more about what I actually do, which is training dogs, if you already have a dog, canineacademy.us is our website for dog training. It's a video-based dog training course, but we give you support. So if you're trying to follow the videos and you're like, okay, I think I'm doing what you said, but it's not working, my phone number is actually on the website. You can text me and I will help you work through the problem. Sometimes I go, send me a video of what you're doing. Oh yeah, I see it right there. You're not doing this right. And then you can fix it. But that's canineacademy.us. If you're interested in dogs, again, we mentioned I almost never put dogs on sales. Normally my puppies are $2,500. They're $2,000 right now. I have German Shepherds, Dutch Shepherds, and Malinois available. For my genetics, I need to do breedings, but I don't have like slots for the dogs. So we're dropping the prices down to be able to help more people get them. And if you really want a dog and you can afford $2,000, reach out and talk to me. We'll try and work with you. I want to get these dogs into good homes, and we'll find the dogs that fit good for you guys. But if you also are interested in protection dogs, you can find out more information at fortresscanine.com as well. A lot of people are scared of protection dogs because they think, oh no, that dog, it's been trained to bite. Now it's an attack dog. And some people that train dogs do end up with that problem. So it's something that it's a valid concern to have. Our focus with dogs is we train dogs that are safe and stable around your children. My kids will come and sleep on my dogs. But if a bad guy walks in that room, the dog is going to go and smash that person. And when it's over, and they're back to being like, okay, like literally my dogs will be like, I'm going to smash that guy. Okay, it's done. Can you pet me now? Like, it's all about obedience. There's no aggression in the dogs. I told you to go rip that guy's arms off, go do it. They go and they do their job. And then they're like, okay, it's over now. Can you pet me? And so it's like literally it's a light switch on, light switch off. So if you come to the SRF, you can see some of the demos where we actually do that. Strangers in the bite suit, deploy, bite. Okay, it's over. Take the suit off, walk up to the dogs and pet them. And they're just like, okay, cool. I like you. So that's what we do with the dogs. That's our focus on the training side.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Joel.
Absolutely.
This is a great time to remind you all that we have barter blanket tonight. What is barter blanket?